and our other panelists here. We thank you guys very much. Here's what we're going to do. There is a microphone. Can someone stand by it? We have a microphone. Don't we have it out there in the audience? All right, right there is where the microphone stand is. It's set at about 17 feet high.
I'll actually be the first question since I'm
to me.
by it.
So here's what we're going to do. I'd like you guys to go to the mic, introduce yourselves and what you do, ask your question, but please note, this is a very amazing opportunity. We have one of the region's most famous success stories, Joe Canfor, sitting right here. You get a chance to ask a man who's done it and made it all work questions directly. We have the future of this region sitting right next to us, the future leader, and we have the narrative historian and forecaster of everything that's happening on a broader scale sitting up here. Please don't miss this chance to engage with us. That's what we're here for. Please go to the mic and ask questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening. John Friend, born in Akron, live in Silver Lake. Kent State grad, go Flashes. Love Akron U, law school grad there. All good. So here's the thing. Born in 1965, the great American dream is build wealth, buy a home, educate your family, all the stuff that probably Joe Canfor grew up with, right? Now I've got these two young millennials in my household. One's in college, one's in high school. What do I do as a parent to empower them, right? Entrepreneurial spirit is a wonderful thing, but institutional learning and working for a great company, not a terrible thing. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm an executive. Help me out, guys.
Joe, why don't you take the first stab at that? But you made a really important point. There's no right or wrong here. It's a DNA thing. Everybody's not an entrepreneur, and everybody shouldn't be. We need lots of things done. When people talk to me and say I should build an internet company like Jeff did, I always wonder who's going to keep making stuff, because we also need stuff. I wouldn't be sitting on this chair if everybody started an internet company. So everybody's not going to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's not going to be in the internet. Excellent question. Joe, why don't you start?
Look, I know John has some great data on how millennials are thinking and what it's going to be like, that gig economy. But, you know, there's a lot of literature out there that says that people are really searching for several things in their life and in their jobs. One is meaning. You want to do something meaningful. Another is sort of efficacy. You want to feel that you're really accomplishing something. A third is connection. You want to feel truly connected to other people and other things. And lastly, at least if you talk about what Daniel Pink says or some of the other authors are saying, that you want a level of autonomy. Well, right there, when you add that autonomy in at the end, you see the tension. You want connection and meaning, and you want autonomy. And historically, much in our society has been based on you find meaning in the social construction of identity. That we talk right now about individuals, and I think that's where we are. I'm sort of predicting, without the polling data, so I'm really out on a limb here, but I'm sort of predicting that there will be a time when the meaning we find, even millennials, will start to come excuse me, from more connection, more doing things together. As we learn, for example, to ride share with Uber and you know, travel share with Airbnb and all of these things, the things in our life.
Plus your idea for shower sharing, we're going to implement that.
Oh yeah, well that's the ultimate. But
drink your wine, then you'll get it.
But to sort of wind up, I think that as in the experience economy, it's not only, I mean, go on a trip. The memories are what you did with someone else. In most things in life, so I believe that we're going to be seeking those connections because they will raise in value as the things in our life go down in value. And I think that has a chance to maybe change that. And maybe the stickiness of jobs and relationships will extend beyond the 2-year cycle. I think there's also a responsibility for really good entrepreneurial companies to think ahead also and to think about how they can create more longevity. Right now, some of the aspects of Wall Street, including the trading, work against that. But I could actually see in a private company, you think differently and you think long term. So I am not really the founder of our company, by the way. Our company was founded in 1946 by my uncle. When I started, there were about 10 employees. Now we have 3,000. So I guess I was an entrepreneur along the way, but he did the hard work.
Well, it looks like you did okay, though.
But I did. But my point was that I never thought about turning it over. I always thought about the connection with the people and what I feel about the people and what I owe to the people as part of a legacy. And that meant that I had to worry about not today, not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow. So I'm a little more optimistic, but then again, entrepreneurs are optimistic by by constitution.
Thank you, John. And then we're going to go to Courtney, because that was a really good question Sam asked. Part of what he asked was advice to give his kids. What advice do you give your kids, especially while you're off studying, millennials?
Perfectly consistent with what you said. Inculcate good values in your kids. And there is a part of being human is that need and that struggle to survive. It is also to be connected and to live a meaningful life. And those are preeminent values among millennials. Now, incidentally, boomers and Generation Xers, I call Nikes, have that same orientation. But particularly among millennials, now that they have had to struggle to survive since the Great Recession, is that desire to marry the values they've been inculcated with their absolute need to survive. And so there is less of a focus on things and accumulation of things. There are ways that they're finding to reduce the costs of living, ride sharing, among other things. One of the things that's really fascinating about millennials is the fact that they share, and they're, even if they can't express it, are going to be developing in what Jeremy Rifkin calls a zero-margin society. We're on the cusp of that, where the actual cost of creating things is down to zero. So we don't need as much income, and we don't need as much profit to survive as we once did. This is an opportunity. We're not there yet, but we're very, very close to that. And so the thought of developing those entrepreneurial traits of independence, autonomy, being nimble, flexible, being able to pivot, being able to repackage and reinvent oneself, those are the kinds of things that you need to inculcate in your kids. And from there, don't worry, they'll be fine. The kids will be fine.
Thank you. Courtney, we want to hear what advice, you can grab that one. We want to hear what advice your parents gave you, what advice you took or didn't take, and please keep in mind, you're on camera.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be nice. No, I think first and foremost, my parents instilled in me first a core set of values. So there's always some guiding compass and sort of foundation that was laid, I think, just in terms of what my decision-making process is. But then beyond that, they encouraged me to get involved in all different sorts of activities so that I could discover my own natural leadership strengths as a result of that. So they didn't push me and tell me, well, go and study engineering and get an engineering degree because you can make a lot of money doing that. They encouraged me to go get a degree, but they also pushed me into a lot of other things. I was heavily involved in the arts. I actually just had a dance performance at Severance Hall this past Friday. So so I do a lot. So I was engaged in a lot, both arts and sciences. I was pushed and challenged to have this very diverse background. And I think because of those unique set of experiences, in addition to the core set of values I was brought up with, then I was set out on the course I am now, if you could say that's a good course to be. But
I'm pretty sure we'd say that's a good course to be. And that's, I'm pretty sure you're the only one up on the stage that actually had a dance performance, we're just saying. And
at least professionally.
Okay, fine. I have danced, just not professionally. Do we have a who's next at the question?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Gopal, Hi, Jeff. Hi, Courtney. I have a question, and it is a difficult question because I've been struggling with it for the last couple of years. I have been at the University of Akron. I work in technology commercialization, trying to work with inventors at the university, taking their technologies to find markets. And this question is specifically for Joe, but maybe others can answer this. We have a world-class university with polymer science at its core, and they have hundreds and hundreds of inventions, polymers, polyurethanes, polymers that react to light, hydrophobic surfaces. It's almost as though we have a wealth of solutions looking for products, okay? On the other hand, we have a wealth of energy and a wealth of talent, but we don't know how to connect to the outside world, particularly to companies who are in touch with the outside market and the outside world who need solutions. So I'm trying to find out how can we, from the university, with students and with the student energy and the solutions provided by world-class researchers, connect with companies outside of the university to provide innovative solutions based out of University of Akron.
Before Joe answers, Ian, will you go give Gopal an EXL Center brochure? Kind of our job, but please.
Well, I'll start. There are some structural inefficiencies that stand in the way, but I'd actually be glad to talk with you offline because my answer will be too long. But first of all, there's some state laws in Ohio that make it very difficult for companies to work with universities on their technology and tech transfer. And people don't want to invest when the university ultimately owns the technology. And there's a number of us who have talked about some changes in state law. Number two, there are some attitudes. Professors should be, in my opinion, encouraged to actually gain financially by their participation, so they have a stake in the game and can get really actively involved. And third, technologists, it's nice to have technology, but market needs are where most things start. So you've got to pair this with the market needs. So there are a lot of structural issues, but I do believe that you've been struggling with it, and Akron needs to solve that. Not just alone, but our whole state needs to solve that, because right now there's so much involved in universities, and we do have a world-class polymer center, and we should be getting more out of it than we are, and we're really not. And I can tell you that my company, we work to some extent with the University of Akron, but we work with many other universities with different state laws that are easier to work with than with universities in Ohio. And that's sad.
It is sad.
It's sad, but it's real. If a university professor works on one of our projects on staff time, that IP is owned by the university. Well, I can't make a living that way. So I won't go into the details because it's way too technical. But there's work to be done in the state of Ohio.
Thank you so much. I'd like to say amen, actually, to that one. Gopal, good question. Joe, great answer, and we will all take notes. Did you want to add something to that? Or?
I only did in the sense that at least we have taken the step where we have the university as a resource, and that the universities, you could not mention education and marketing in the same sentence 25 years ago, let alone education and entrepreneurism. So we're moving along as far as that's concerned. The next step, of course, is to be able to translate that into legislation on the state level, the federal level, and quite frankly on the global level as well, to ensure that we're unleashing the power of entrepreneurism, and that the university then is a true enabler. And beneficiary as well. Yep.
Thank you so much. That was a great question. Is there anyone else back there? Any other questions? I have one. Hang on. I think someone's at the mic. Dark and shadowy shape. Please speak.
Brandon.
Hey, Brandon Costa, UA grad, and XL Street Team. So during the debrief today, this question is for Mr. Zogby or Jay-Z. During the debrief today, we were talking about some of the topics we wish we would have had the opportunity to ask. And one of those was the question of what could a potential presidency of a Hillary Clinton or a Donald Trump, what could be some of the implications upon the millennial generation of those presidencies?
Okay. Do I have to talk hip hop?
I can hit a beat if you want.
Oh, you're good.
No, but
You're getting a good education.
an
here.
interpretive dance answer would help. That's
Oh,
all
right.
I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. Look, I think everyone recognizes, if you cut through all the awful rhetoric, I think all the candidates understand that we're on the cusp of the next economy. Yeah. There are differences in solutions, and there are differences also in major policies like immigration. Immigration is such an important issue, because right there alone you're talking about some people trying to limit the access of very creative and talented people here and innovative people here in the U.S. But I think what is really important here is that we need to create policies, and I think both parties understand this, that unleash power of entrepreneurism. Both parties do understand. They have different approaches to it. One approach is, let's say it's a democratic approach, and that is that the government creates the kinds of regulations and the kinds of enabling policies for immigrants and so on to join and to develop. The other is on the other side is to enable legal immigration, to expand visas for those who come here and want to stay or have a unique sort of thing where they can stay. Unfortunately, all the rhetorical stuff gets in the way. And actually, given the nature of the two political parties, neither of them has either the capacity or the incentive, they feel, to work with each other. But meanwhile, that slows economic development and entrepreneurial development.
Thank you. I want to respect your time. I want to make sure we have some networking time.
Yes.
So let's do a couple more questions, and then we want to make sure you guys have some networking time. So go ahead.
Yes, my name is Roland Jackson, Akron native. I'm the author of the first children's picture book called Jamari's Drum. Tony Tropey is a good friend of mine, a mentor. I've been around the world a few times. When I came in, you mentioned a visit to Africa and your experiences. You, sir, Democratic Party, what I've learned with my demographic and my experience as an African born in America, how do I start a revolution where I don't get shot? We're at a unique time now. I've worked in schools across the country. STEM is now STEAM. Mm-hmm. So who's ever crunching numbers or whatnot, they've realized now it's art. And so what you talk about, I'm ready now for a creative revolution through art. You, sir, I did a little research on you, and you're pretty good with your analytics. In parting, I'll play a few notes on my Nimbira. I collaborated with Christopher Wilkins, 2007, 2008 co-producer, with this little Mbira thumb piano. Who's going to be the next president?
Wait, you said all that to ask
one.
who's going to be the next
Whoa.
president? Okay.
Whoa. All right, you heard it here first? I don't know.
But your analytics have been spot on.
Too early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too early.
Okay.
John, Jay-Z, I'll help you
There's
out
so
there.
many
It's too
other
early.
variables. But get back to the mic. Go, don't go away. My little granddaughter
Yes.
is going to be 3 next week. And so I'm going to buy your book right now, and I want you to sign it for me to Minnie. Isn't that sweet? Her name is Minerva, named after the goddess
nice.
wisdom. So to Minnie on your 3rd birthday, okay? Now, with that said, who's going to be the next president? It is way too early. But I'm also going to tell you, to the millennials in the crowd, raise your hands. It's entirely up to you. If you turn out to vote, there'll be a Democrat. Maybe a damaged one, but hey, a Democrat.
A Democrat.
If you don't turn out to vote, there'll be a Republican, a damaged one.
Excuse me, what's the proper spelling of Minnie?
Minnie. Thanks.
One more question. Is there one more back there?
Hey guys, how's it going? Rick Stockberger. I am the gig economy, so I have a couple job titles. I'm executive director of Launch League, which is the one I'm most proud of. The one I'm least proud of is vice president of government affairs for coal company LPA, so I'm a lobbyist. But the question that I had for y'all really is kind of based on age. So when y'all were young and in your 20s, what did your parents say about you, and what did they think about you when you were listening to rock and roll? And are millennials truly remarkable, or is just that youth is truly remarkable?
Okay, we'll make this the last question for now, and we'll go around and everybody take a shot at that. Joe, you're up.
I don't know. I think things are, the more they change, the more they're the same. I think it's the external context and how they relate to the context. It's also what area you grew up in. Did you grow up with a strain like John told us about? People have been in a strained economy or not. So I think deep down they're the same, but you always have to look at the situation in context. I also know I have a daughter that has quadruplet 6-year-old boys. And
Wow.
And the story I'm going to tell you real quickly is that recently, just a couple of weeks ago, their teacher asked them, what were they good at? And each one got to tell. And the first one, of course, the one named after me, said, I say thank you very well. Okay? And that was Yoey. Benji said, I hit people hard. Now, the reason I tell you that story is they're not identicals, they're fraternals, but they were born within moments of each other. Okay? They've lived in exactly the same household for now almost 7, they'll be 7 in April, and yet they're that different. So we are different as people. The one thing about even advertising and everything we're doing with the millennials today is it's not a one-to-many anymore. It's a one-to-one relationship. So whether it's your customer in business, there's no such thing as average. When someone walks into my company with an average, I say, you know what? I was in a room recently with 2 men, their average age was 40. One was a newborn and one was 80. Telling you that their average age is 40 tells you very little about them. And I think that's one of the things that we have to recognize with millennials, that they are individuals and we have to get to them one-on-one. And we can now because of the digital revolution. We couldn't get to them one-on-one before. We published the Sears catalog and they read it, but we didn't know what they were thinking, and we can now. So I think people are more the same than different. We just have to treat them as individuals, not treat them as amalgamated.
Thank you, and we will get you 4 more children's books before we leave. Go ahead, Courtney.
I love that question. Thanks for asking that, Rick. I mean, speaking it from the millennial standpoint, I have to completely agree. I think it is just, some of my most favorite colleagues to work with, I'm generations apart from. So, our director of engineering, who I work with, is in his 70s, and we are just like the best rock star team together. And he's one of the most youthful people that I know. He plays tennis every single day. I think that youthfulness is in fact the defining factor. I don't think that, as much as we could work to define millennials and say how we're different in this and that, and there are facts about that are true. But that doesn't mean that we can't work together generationally and across generations. And I think that there's a lot of value to making these paired teams of us, working together, understanding each other, and we can make a really powerful team together. So if that answers your question.
Yes.
John?
So I'll plug my new book, which comes out next week, which is called We Are Many and We Are One. And it's about America's neo-tribes. And what I attempt to do in this book is move beyond demographics and understand that across all sorts of demographics, including age, who we are is, for the first time, based on attributes that we share and commonalities that we share. And so I've identified neo-tribes, and 11 of those, and then tribes that will emerge and tribes that will decline. But the point is that we can cross generations and cross regions and cross race, and that the smart marketers, whether it's political marketers or consumer marketers, are going to come to an appreciation that for the first time in history, we as individuals can define our communities of self-interest, and that there are ways not only to appeal to those individual tribes, but to identify what I call tribal border crossings. So, for example, when there are liberal kids and liberal older people with frizzy hair and denim skirts, those are the guys, who identify with green living and sustainability and global warming, and at the same time, younger Christian social conservatives who say the number one issue in my world is man's stewardship of God's earth. I say, wow, here's an opportunity for us to communicate with a broader spectrum of people. The smart marketers and political strategists are going to identify with that.
Thank you so much. So here's what I'm going to do. I want to say 3 quick things to you guys before we close, before Ian thanks our guests. First of all, I need to thank you guys. We need to thank you guys. You actually tonight just paid us the ultimate compliment. You did not leave. I'm amazed at the lack of people I have seen walking out during this. Thank you very much for giving us your time. We value it and we appreciate it. Second, Ian's going to come up and thank our guests. We'll do that last to close it. But second, I'm going to ask you 2 things. One, I'm going to ask you to give us feedback. This event is not for us, it's for you. So don't assume that we think anything we're doing is right. If you want a different host, tell us that. If you want more Q&A, normally we'll only have 2 guests. Tell us what you liked and tell us what you didn't so we can get this right. This is only our second time. We want this to be an event that you come to and look forward to coming to. We can only do that with your feedback, so please give it to us, good or bad. The third thing I'm going to ask you is do not leave this room for your own sake without introducing yourself to at least one person you did not know when you came in. You know our theory, I talk about this all the time, of kinetic collisions. It's what happens when you put people whose paths never normally cross in one room together and then let them connect. Those collisions create amazing new relationships in our community. We invite a cross-section of the community into this room because we want you to meet and interact and form new teams and new ideas. So please don't miss the chance to meet each other before you leave. And with that, I'm going to ask Ian to come back up. There you are. And thank our guests.